Here I have a proper old school portable television. This is an old National TC1302. I never thought I'd see one of these again. Haven't seen one for years. It does have the door, but the pins are, well, part of the door's broken and one of the pins is broken. There's the old Quintrix. The extra lens inside does something or other. It used to be the motto. You used to get a little sticker on the corner of the tube. It's got the old magic line in it, which was the fine tuning thing. Green band that used to come up on the screen. I thought it was mainly on the old rotary tuners, but looks like this has it as well. These go right back to the 70s. Not exactly sure how early they were, but I think they were around 76 to 78 kind of era. Pretty early on. They did have an earlier great big sort of TC1300, 1405. It was like a Delta gun portable, I'm pretty sure. Great big white case thing. I think these came after, so these are a bit smaller than the usual. They're 13-inch viewable rather than 14. And I think the main thing that killed all these off from memory was they got a big, I think these are like a M7, M8 chassis, real early sort of chassis. And they have a big white, there were a few versions of these. I think there was a white version of these. There was a 1302, maybe a 1301, and maybe a 1303 or 4 or something as well, but one of them used to have a big white line output transformer in it, and something failed in the focus section of that, and the focus would drift off and they'd go really blurry, and there wasn't any sort of easy way to substitute that or fix them, I don't think. I don't know if I ever tried. I get a feeling I may have tried adding resistors to the focus or something to try and tweak it back in range, as you sometimes did in the old days, to try and get things going again, because I think a new transformer was like $150, $200 or something stupid. Not worth doing, but I guess I'll risk. I've checked, because these only have a single bit of insulation on the old figure 8 power cords. Pays to run your hands down those and check them, make sure there's no rabbits have been chewing on it or something like that, no cuts in it. It does have a couple of little rough patches, but no wire showing through. But I'll risk plugging it in and see what it does, if anything. Oh, I heard something fire. I can hear something running. Which one's the volume? Ooh, geez. Oh my god, it actually works. Besides the volume control being pretty well shot. Wow, it's actually got a good raster on it and stuff. These were, a chassis, a lot of old capacitors in them that used to fail and things like that, or could fail in them. But of course, being a portable, these didn't always have the most use. Well, these were lower hours, only used occasionally, maybe in the caravan or taken away camping or something like that. Does it actually tell you the chassis? I don't think they do. Just a model serial number. Is that just the case? Oh, the case is moving around. Something's making a high pitched sort of noise, but I think that's just the case. Whether it actually tunes in or whatever is a whole other thing. I'm not seeing. Oh yeah, there's our magic line. The switch there's a bit dicky too. Ha! Didn't think I'd see one of them again. Oh yeah, they're all on UHF is why we're not getting anything. So I've switched the first channel 1 down to VHF low. Oh look, not a very good colour signal by the look of it, but something's out in that colour by the look of it. Although, is it just because this is over the top of the magenta and red? Could be. So I think that's... So we adjust these so the little magic band comes down to the minimum. Oh no, it's just covering up the red. I was going to say it looked pretty horrible. And how's that? I think that's automatic fine tuning on now. Ain't going to be pretty, but... Oh yeah, there's the colour. When it decides to work, I think we are a little low on the red maybe there. It's not too bad though. Maybe we just need some more contrast. That white doesn't look the best. And our colour control is pretty dicky. Now there's our contrast. Oh, let's got the white back to white. And that's the brightness. Plenty of brightness there. Wow, that's actually got a really good tube in it. Yeah, I think most of the TVs that have survived to this era are the good ones. Basically, people have tossed all the broken ones and the worn out ones away, and what's left is the good ones. So I'm actually glad to see that in such good condition. Shame about the cabinet's a bit knocked around. Looks like it might either have a screw missing or a broken mount or something on the back. I don't know if that's the original antenna that would have come with it. The ballon's missing off it. Oh, it doesn't want to come out. But they did actually come with one of these antennas. I doubt that's the original national one, but it could be. So quite a dusty one. I think these are a live chassis. Yeah, chassis live, contact is dangerous. Looks like someone's taped the model number back on there because it probably fell off. I mean, it's up there, but the serial number and stuff's on that, the proper label. Yeah, the cabinet's just a bit wonky in that corner for some reason. But it's certainly worth a look inside on these. I have not looked inside one of these since probably around the mid-90s or a bit later, but there were never a lot of these around. They would have been super expensive, and not a lot of portable TVs going back to the 70s at all. Certainly not the earlier part of the 70s, but they did make them. They just didn't sell a lot because they're so expensive. Somewhere I've got a Dick Smith catalogue that shows the Sony KV1300 or thereabouts and the KV1800, and I think there's about $100 difference between the larger TV, which I think it was the 48cm, the 1800, 18 inch I guess would be the model number, and they also used a 13-inch tube like these, which most manufacturers didn't use. They were mostly 14-inch. And I've just got to undo this little wrap so we can take that off. Oh, there is a way of getting this. I think there's an antenna socket. If we undo the little blue bit that holds the wire, we should be able to just rotate that. Just rotates and then pulls out. That's probably a better way to do it, especially with a live chassis TV. Oh, that's where that little label on the back probably came from. So what old school tube have we got in this thing? I don't remember the numbers on any of these. A 320 BTB22 by the look of it. This has actually got a black light output transformer, but that's the kind of shape they were. I think sometimes they'd burn through, and sometimes the focus would go. There's the focus control on the back. High voltage dangerous. Got an NEC power regulator, 2SC1875. 2SD299 Matsushita horizontal output. Yeah, this is I think there was a more primitive version of these that looked a bit older, had a bit more stuff inside it, I think. Oh yeah, these old chassis. Yeah, I think these were M7, M8 era. I don't know if it was an M9, maybe there was. They got these little flip out things. The big wooden cabinet TVs had the same. Warning, chassis connected to the AC mains. The necessary precaution must be taken before servicing. Do not connect external antenna directly to the tuner. So yeah, if you unplug this and plug it into an earthed antenna, you'll blow something in the power supply, or even worse, if you plug it into an unearthed antenna, you may be putting 240 volts on the antenna and potentially shock someone, or right through the antenna system in the house if it's got multiple outlets. Got to undo a few of these little clips to get the chassis right out. There's a few longer lengths of wire here sort of tied up to keep them out of the way so they don't melt on any hot components or whatever. Cable dress, as they called it in TVs, was kind of important. You're always meant to put these back together with all the cables wrapped around the right things, because if they're just floating around they could touch on something hot and then you can get a high voltage somewhere it shouldn't be or something. So yeah, that's about as far as the chassis is going to come out, I think. EHT lead's holding it back a bit. Oh, it's actually got this plastic. Whoops, we just broke that. Give that a bit more length. And yeah, some nice old school caps. It looks like someone, I'd say, has changed that big blue one there. Oh, there's another couple of dark blue ones, so maybe they're original. But amazingly, most of these sets don't need recapping yet. Probably could be a good idea with some of these capacitors, but a lot of these old ones just go and go and go. Looks like they've got a big screen control there. CRT I, it doesn't actually say that what it is, I don't think. We've got low light adjustments for B, G and R, and drive adjustments, WB adjustment. I think that might be that pot that's not there, but 2 drive, 3 low light adjustments, Varactor tuner, and yeah, a few other NEC chips, some AN chips, a service switch there, which basically just drops the vertical down, a pitcher control there, not sure if that's like a sub contrast or something, RFAGC, H-old, V-height, that'll be a V-old sticking out the back. What's this other one here? Doesn't actually say. It probably, I think these were labelled on the back. From memory you could get, yeah, you could get access. Okay, so yeah, so we've got AGC, horizontal hold, height, V-hold, V-lin, V-center. Oh, you could actually even, look at this, you could even, if I could move the camera back, but you could actually do the screen and the RGB, all those drive and low lights from outside the TV. Didn't even need to undo it though. Gee, that's a bit risky with a live chassis if you're putting tools into the actual wipers of the pot. Yeah, none of them have, normally you'd expect these plastic controls on them. The little potentiometers with the plastic on it. So that's a bit dodgy, I would think, with a live chassis set to have even access holes like that in the back of it, but maybe they were all safe enough. And yeah, it's so old it's got a speaker transformer by the look of it. Crazy thing in a portable TV, have a great big lump of transformer like that. I mean, obviously they've got a switch mode power supply in this, so they've, or maybe it's a linear, yeah, it is a switch mode, I think. Yeah, I don't know, these earlier Nationals had some weird thyristor or something type power supplies in them. That must be a chopper transistor, I think, on that heatsink and chopper transformer. Not as weird as some of their, oh no, it was actually the horizontal output stages, I think, were SCR or something in the Nationals. This one's just got a standard horizontal output transistor. I think some of these, so what chassis this might be a different chassis altogether. I think it was the M7 or 8. Had 2 SCRs or something, which was a thing that I think European TVs used to like doing, SCR flyback or something. Definitely a bit of a weird circuit because it's pretty rare you had to fix them, but when you did they were very unfamiliar and took a bit of working out at times, especially if they kept blowing parts or something. I guess the other thing I'll do is lie this on its front, and I don't know if these chassis could easily be lifted up, and I shouldn't have put the neck board back on. I think you could sort of lean them over towards the tube. Oh, I was going to say be careful not to bend the pins, but I already bent one. They're really annoying. Heatsink on there. Got to be super careful when you work on sets like this to make sure all the pins are straight before you try and put the neck board back on, so you don't bend them anymore if they are knocked out of whack a bit. Yeah, it's been so long since I worked on one, maybe you have to sit them something like that. But the soldering was generally really good in these. I don't remember National TVs needing much in the way of dry joints, but I can see one right on this big capacitor here. It's actually a 4-pin capacitor, so luckily it hasn't caused any trouble yet, but eventually that will probably go. The other one, yeah, actually the other one could be dry as well. So it's possible we did have an intermittent issue with this set. It's certainly close to dry if it's not dry. And that's why it pays to check these things out. But yeah, most of it is pretty well soldered from the factory. Nothing runs too hot in these things. A lot of the European TVs, everything was jammed in too close together, and that, yeah, it just had so much heat. That resistor there is pretty dodgy. That's next to the same spot, so maybe that's a heat area. But yeah, if you jam everything into a small area, everything runs super hot. You get dry joints everywhere, you get connectors falling to bits because the plastic goes brittle, and yeah, generally parts just don't live as long as they should. But the Japanese always seem to manage to get their heat about right and not overdo it. Even in these older sets, which do have quite a few wire wound resistors and stuff. I can see a bit of a high voltage diode there. Looks like it's got a crack in it, but is that just... I think it's just the way it had a bit of dust there and some lettering on it. So this might be the better chassis. Of the fact it survived, it probably is. I think it was the earlier one that the line output used to fail a lot, either arc or go out of focus. That was a problem with a lot of early national TVs, where they had big triplers in them, separate line output and tripler, and the tripler would crack or just go out of focus or something like that. I did work out a way, I think, with the TC1302, which was one that they died in, and a way of pulling the tripler out of a different national chassis that they didn't die in, or very rarely died in, and could actually modify it with a bit of different mounting bracket and stuff, and possibly a different focus resistor value or something, focus pop value, and you could actually resurrect those TVs with quite a common second-hand good tripler that was especially out of sets, I think, where the tubes were gone, because some of these national tubes didn't last the best in these early TVs. Didn't get as many hours out of them as some other TVs. But yeah, I think that was the main area of not such good joints. Looks like our drive transformer looks alright. So yeah, not really much interesting to see in this thing, but it is kind of nice to see one of these old chassis again that you sort of think you're never going to see again. But one of these models, probably this one, is the one we're pretty reliable and not seen very often. And yeah, often the other ones, when you did see them, that was always because the line output transformer or something was shot in it, and that was the end of them. Especially when you buy second-hand TVs and that, you always seem to end up with all the junk out there. It was actually quite amazing how good customers were at picking what things were write-offs. Maybe they'd been looked at, but most of them hadn't been, I don't think, and yet they still often knew when to buy a new TV. It wasn't just a simple fault. It actually turned out to be a major issue. But obviously they didn't know what they're doing, but they still managed to pick a good time to go and buy a new one. Put that chassis back in there. Put our little clamps back on everything. Wrap all our wires up, these loose extra bits here out of the way. That's about that. That was for the antenna socket. There's another one here. Probably doesn't matter so much with just an old TV that I'm playing around with, but it was always best if you're doing them for customers and stuff, so you had no legal liability or anything, to make sure you put everything back the way it was. Well, I've got the socket still there, haven't I? So do I need that length? I might. Just to get the back on. Ideally this should have the power cord upgraded on it. I'm not going to bother. I might as well keep it as original, since I'm not likely to be using it or using it much. But yeah, if you're going to sort of sell this, I'd probably put a new cord on it, just so it's no risk of damage, or easy damage anyway. Even if it's not your fault, still better to have the double insulated cords. That should come through and rotate. Put the little clip back in here so it can't come loose. And clamp that cord back there. And that's about it. But yeah, quite an odd looking little TV. Not the most aesthetically pleasing one ever made, I don't think. They were a bit weird looking. But yeah, just one of the quirkier ones from the early days. I think it was only these and the Sonys in the early TVs that did the 13-inch tubes, and then there were some Rankarina ones. I think do I have one somewhere? I don't. Oh, maybe not. I did see one for sale somewhere, but I don't think I bought it because they wanted decent money for it. But I may have one. I think it was a Sanyo as well, come to think of it. Might have been a white plastic Sanyo, a little wood grain, and possibly a white version of an NEC made Rankarina. Came out in a 13-inch, but generally 14 inches was the standard everywhere. I guess I should. Oh, I completely forgot to do the potentiometers and the switches. So we'll take that back apart again. I completely forgot I was going to pull the front out of the damn thing. If I can, or if I need to even. So let's see. Yeah, all the pots are down the bottom, aren't they? Do we need to loosen that off? Yes, we do. So while we've got this apart, it looks like those pots are on a board with the power switch. That's our tuning board, speaker. Well, are there any pots on there? I can't remember now. No, just buttons. So it's mainly just those controls. I think we've got to take the screw off the top of the switch. Carefully get that out of there. And what else? I can see a screw in the middle of the board, which is not the easiest to get to. Maybe I need a shorter screwdriver for once. I think we can angle it in. I probably can slide this chassis across like this, that would make sense. Second screw, and I'll put the other one. Starting to come out. Oh, maybe I should have took the knobs off. I can hear something coming off. Yeah, I should have took the knobs off. Now I've got the problem with the wiring, which goes down. There must be another clip or something down in there. Oh, here's one of those little toggly things that wrap around each other. And it looks like the power cord's going to be... Is it the power cord? Oh, it's not actually connected to this. Maybe I should be going over. Power cord is getting tangled on everything. Here we go. That's our front panel, plenty of dust in there. So I might as well brush all the dust out of there. And then get some switch cleaner lubricant. It's got holes in the tops of the pots, it has, but it doesn't really matter because I can get under the... between the case and the connections there where they come out the front. That was the volume, I think. That was the worst one. Oh, that I knew there was something else I was thinking of was wrong on the front. That magic eye switch, I think, was a bit dicky. This set probably was considered pretty useless with that volume control like that. That's the magic eye switch. And to remove all the tuning stuff. Bingo. easy when we just can either squirt through the end, which we can on this one, or down through the little knob thing there. I reckon that's gone right down in there. Why not to give it a bit more? Put the knob back on and try and get it back into place. Now it's perfectly solid. It's just held by one screw on the corner of the circuit board. Seems a bit inadequate, but it does the job. Now, where did these come from? Down under the power cord, I think. Oh yeah, I've got to get those wires back into that little catch thing there, little clamp. Is that where the power goes? There. Now we've got some other wire in the way, that's for the headphone socket or something. Does it have a headphone socket? Maybe that's why it has a big transformer on the speaker, because it actually looks like this has got a headphone socket wire coming down. I didn't even notice that on the front. Oh, come on. They never seem to want to go back in the way they came out. I think that's it. Especially when there's wires and stuff to catch. Like that headphone wire, which is in the most inconvenient spot possible. Just got to be careful when you tighten these up that you're not going to break the board or something because it isn't sitting in correctly. Something still... Yeah, that's... Oh, okay, that had to push down a bit lower. That headphone wire or whatever it is. I think we're in right now. Yep. Now I've got to put those wires back through that little clip on the bottom of the cabinet. And clip that back around them. Ah, is that round? They're in there, aren't they? Now you've got to try and get your fingers in and twist it. And where's that red thing that comes round? Was that in there? I'm not sure that even went in there. There's a bit of power cord there. I've got this red clamp here. I think it came back up like around all these cables. Something like that to get those loops of longer cable back clamped in. And one around here. Probably had that loop of earth cable in there somewhere. And pins on the tube I haven't bent. Now, they were the cover, well those two were the chassis ones, slightly different. But hopefully we've now got, I shouldn't really screw the cover up first I guess, but I don't think I'm going to be doing much more with it. But hopefully we've got some working potentiometers and stuff. If they're not working, well there's not much more I can do about it anyway. So I might as well screw it back together. Now, all the knobs fell off here somewhere. Probably a good time to clean up around the knobs. But I don't think I'll worry about it too much at the moment. Set could definitely do with a good clean. Probably look a bit better once it's cleaned up. Oh, I did have the answer, or someone had taped the door on, so there's a bit of tape glue, which is a real pain when people do that, because getting that glue off these, you have to be very careful you don't take off the silver paint as well. Get the pattern generator into it. It's over there. Nice if they put all their antenna sockets in the same spot. Hopefully that's just because I've turned it up. Oh, we've got our magic line back on, but of course that's because of me fiddling with it. Guess I should check the tuning again. Yeah. No colour because I've tweaked every control on the thing a million times. Yeah, that's much better. Main thing is that the volume control isn't all scratchy. And the magic line seems to switch on and off nicely without flickering and stuff, like it did at the beginning. I probably could have given the focus a little tweak maybe. It's pretty sharp though. That's about as good as you'll get on a set like that. Purity's good. Oh yeah, that's focused pretty well. I mean, that's got amazing geometry too for an old one. Often they were a bit out on these things. Just from caps and stuff aging. So yeah, surprisingly good little TV. I'll give it a bit of a clean up. Won't be doing an RGB mod on that one, or even a composite mod, especially with a live chassis in it. But certainly was an interesting little set from the old days. Not, like I say, not that common. But yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a white cabinet version, though. I think there were two different models in the black and silver one, and one in the white. And then I think the later ones they went to white. They had a couple of 14-inch white cabinet ones maybe. But like I say, I think the very first National Portable was actually a Delta gun, the 1405 or whatever it was. It had a very early big chassis, possibly even like a CP2000 or something, very early M4 or something chassis in it. Big heavy thing it was, great big cabinet. And I think it was one of those, only a few Delta gun portables ever put out in Australia. From around 1975, there was pretty sure there was an AWA G chassis that was Delta gun. There was, yeah, Rank Arena, NEC made Rank Arena. That was like another 1405 or something model. And that was, I'm sure that was a Delta. It was an ugly looking TV, a real horrible looking white cabinet thing. Had a really weird front on it, I think, from memory. And the National, and I think that was it. Yeah, the National, I think, now that I remember, it was a half decent looking TV. That I didn't actually mind those. I'm starting to remember what they actually look like. I think I might actually have some service info on one somewhere. And I'm pretty sure they were one of the Delta guns. I should check this. This wouldn't. These have got these. Of course, they look a bit like a Delta gun, but they've got this weird National patterning. It's just the way they put the little inline. If it had Delta gun, it would have. The problem with Delta guns in a portal was they had a ton of extra circuitry for the convergence and stuff, and extra stuff on the back of the picture tube. And I remember that old Rank Arena one, the picture tube went miles back. Had a big long neck on it, big fat neck like the really early picture tubes, which are even bigger than the sort of fatter neck. I don't know if the camera will get that, but these have got a weird, it's still in line, the line's going down the screen, but they've got them in a sort of, almost like a honeycomb arrangement, where each set of rows is sort of offset in an odd sort of grid pattern. So it does look much like a three little triads in a sort of honeycomb arrangement like you'd see in a beehive or something. So they're all kind of offset and in different positions, rather than just being, of course, a bit hard to see when you've got these colours on here. I guess the white is probably the one to look on. Even then, I can barely see any green in that white. I would have thought we'd get all the colours. Actually, the black that is the best. But I'll have to see if that comes up. I can take a photo of it, I guess. But yeah, I forgot the Nationals. I think these early ones into some of the 14 inches, probably up to more like an M11, M12 chassis era, they still had this pattern. So maybe they did it just as a bit of a gimmick for their Quintrix thing or something. just to make them look a bit different. But yeah, from here it actually looks like a delta because the way those things are all set up in different honeycomb pattern. That's pretty much how a delta gun tube was from memory, whereas all the inline tubes are usually just stripes going down the screen in a more regular pattern. These, yeah, look much more like a delta gun tube. I haven't seen one in so long. I forget what they look like just about. But anyway, thanks for watching.